Welcome back. You're still watching the SABC's Prime News, keeping you up to date with everything that's happening across the continent and East Africa. An important election taking place today. Kenya decides. And we cross now there to the capital city where we find Sarah Kimani. Sarah, jambo, habari yako?
Salama sana, Peter. Thank you very much for having me from Nairobi.
So tell us about today and the counting so far.
Well, the process started in most polling stations at 6 a.m. and those people who did not start at 6 a.m. of course had an extension when polling stations closed at 5 p.m. What is happening right now is that the counting of ballots has started in areas where they closed on time, in areas where they did not close on time and they had people on the queue. Those people are still continuing to cast their ballots, and once the counting is done, then those results are put into a transmission equipment, and the screen you can see behind me is those results now being transmitted to the National Tally Center and to people's homes through the IEBC website, that is the Electoral Commission's website, live as they come in. This time the Electoral Commission trying very hard to ensure that there is no lapse of information between when the polling stations closed and the transmission of the results that is going on now.
Sarah, we're hearing the incumbent, Uhuru Kenyatta, is in the lead. Is it possible to gauge yet how far he is in the lead?
Well, it is still too early to exactly say that indeed he's taken a complete lead. But if you look at the screen behind me, if you look at this top part where the scrolls are going, he's just about to hit 1 million against former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's 600,000. A percentage difference of about 4 percentage points, but it's still too early days. We have 290 polling stations, constituencies out of 40,883 polling stations. The Electoral Commission says it can only call the election once results from all the 290 constituencies are in Nairobi at the National Tallying Center. But indeed, from what we see here, President Uhuru Kenyatta taking an early lead.
2007, we saw post-election violence. Let me help my co-anchor here. We saw post-election violence. Sarah, is it good news that everything happened very smoothly today?
It is good news, and in fact, the African Union, the head of the African Union Elections Observer Mission, former South African President Thabo Mbeki, has just been speaking to us, saying that he was able to visit at least 10 polling stations in 2 different counties. Kenya has 47 counties, and he says in those 2 counties that he's visited, in those 10 polling stations, everything went smoothly. And he's saying so far he can say that the process has been above board, even indicating that the Independent Elections and Boundaries Commission has done a better job than our previous elections, saying that if should there be any problems, then the candidates should be willing to go to court to contest the outcome of the results if they're not happy. But so far so good. A lot of people also on social media are saying that the Electoral Commission this time has been done a good job in terms of the kits working, almost 95% of the kits working, polling stations opening on time, and in areas where people pointed out mistakes, those mistakes were rectified immediately and polling continued as planned.
So, Sarah, you know, one of the things that was always a fear was the security, safety. We had an Electoral Commission officer killed, but it seems that things went off peacefully. Are there any concerns at this stage at all, or have we passed the most sensitive period?
Well, in terms of security, we must admit that the country has so far is holding 180,000 security officers deployed across the country. Along the borders, the government has deliberately also put in more security, considering those are some of the areas that are risky and hotspots for terrorism. Indeed, yesterday there was a terror attack in Mandera, and so the government saying that today most of the places have experienced very little issues in terms of security lapses, and people in areas where there were security lapses, we understand the police have moved swiftly and arrested electoral officials who were involved in malpractices. It is also good to say now that in at least 41 polling stations in the country, voting did not take place because of heavy rains, mostly in the northern part of Kenya, in Turkana and in Laikipia.
Sarah, in finality, this was a very important election for Kenya, for the East African region. Just give us a sense of the mood on the ground today, the mood among ordinary Kenyans themselves, especially considering that there has been electoral violence in the past. Is there a sense of concern or excitement?
Well, there was excitement because out of the 19.6 million people registered to vote today, 5.2 million were voting for the first time. And then this is what we are calling a young election. We have about 65% of the people who cast their ballots, who were registered to vote, being very young people, people below the age of 35. We have candidates who are also very young. We have candidates as young as 24 years old. So a young election, an election that will actually be decided by young people. If you look at the Kenyan social media, we have a very vibrant social media. Kenyans on social media have been sharing their pictures of their fingerprint to show that indeed they cast their ballots. The Electoral Commission itself are tweeting the whole day, asking first-time voters to show indeed that they have cast their ballots, just so that the country can, move away from the thought that there's going to be violence, just trying to change the vibe and trying to keep Kenyans talking. And then Kenyans are also very vibrant, looking out for foreign media. We have about more than 200 foreign journalists accredited for this election. And so we had Kenyans on Twitter being very vigilant, checking out what are foreign media journalists reporting, always saying, no, we are not planning to fight, the country is peaceful. So far, so good. The country is holding.
All right, Sarah, that's where we're going to leave it. Asante sana. We'll catch up with Sarah, definitely. But as she was saying, Uhuru Kenyatta taking an early lead, 57.5% of the vote so far. Raila Odinga second with 41.8%. But don't get excited. It's only 1% of the vote counted so far, so still a long, long way to go.
Yeah, you really can't gauge trends at this stage. But Sarah Kimani and other reporters in Kenya will be on top of that for you. So let's come back home. The Indian Coast Guard